Hello and welcome to Behind the Books. This is episode number 3 in the series, and this is Sisters Romance author Margaret Kay. In this episode, I have 3 topics. The first is going to be book number 3 in the Shepherd Security series, Operation Dark Angel. And the second one, I'm going to talk about audiobooks. And then in the last topic will be an update on that first year. So let's dive right in on book number 3 of the Shepherd Security series, Operation Dark Angel. Now, if you have not read this book yet, you're probably going to want to wait to see this video until after you have, because I'll be doing some spoilers. But first off, let's talk about the character on the model on the cover. That is actually a very good friend of mine, and he volunteered to do the cover for me. He's since moved out of town, but every time he comes to town, we get together, we have lunch, we talk. It's just a wonderful reunion whenever he's back in town. And his first name is actually Tony. I've talked in other books about different things that inspired it and what scenes came to me first. So for this one, I had a really good idea what the story was going to be about because obviously I set it up at the end of book 2. But the very first scene that really came to me as far as an interaction between him and Sienna was her walking to meet him. Her cousin's friend gives her a ride to hook her up with Garcia, this mysterious biker who's going to get her to Colorado, and she's walking over to him. That scene came to me while listening to the Rolling Stones again, and the song is the opening, the sympathy, or the song, let me check my name here again, Sympathy for the Devil. So if you take a listen to the beginning of that, she's in Michael's pickup truck and they're going to meet with this guy. So even at that point, I could hear this song in my head. And then she's walking over to him and he not so gently frisks her. So that was the very first scene that came to me for their interactions. And I knew right away that this story was going to be a lot more sexual than the previous 2 books had been. I think I started out pretty mild in those books, but then number 3 took a major detour. But that is just where their story went. And for a personality like Garcia, like Razor, I just knew that his story was going to be so much different. It had to be so extreme. It had to be so intense. So that's how that happened. And again, each of the stories kind of dictate themselves to me. These characters really do tell me their stories, and the story just takes on a life of its own that I'm telling. And of course, in this book, too, we have Angel going back to the silo, being brought back by Jackson. She's now an employee, so she doesn't have to be sedated. And he's telling her, how it was when he was bringing her in when she was unconscious, and they're holding their little boy. I just really wanted to loop in all of that back into the story and, acknowledge that even though Garcia has this tough guy attitude as Razor, and this persona that's bigger than life, that he was still human. And coming out of that undercover experience was going to be taxing on him. And meeting Jackson's baby, Angel Jackson's baby, his godson, it was written in there to help humanize him, that he really would need something to come back into the real life away from that undercover scenario he'd been in for so long. And then, of course, at the end of book 3, we have the setup for book 4. We have all of the men and Madison and several of the women. They're at Garcia and Sienna's housewarming party when they get scrambled. An emergency call comes through and scrambles both Alpha and Delta teams. And Angel thinks no more of it. Immediately then, book number 4 is going to pick up after the guys get into the office for the briefing. And we find out it's a little bit more than what Angel thought it was, and a little bit more for her to have to worry about personally. She finds that out. And then we get introduced to Doc a little further and the love of Doc's life in book 4. Okay, topic number 2, Audible, audiobooks. Okay, so many of you have written to me and asked me when I was going to make an audiobook or if I was going to make any audiobooks. And up until now, my response has been, that I wasn't planning on it because they are quite expensive to make. However, I find myself in a position now where I think I'm able to do it. Um, I have actually reached out to several narrators and I've gotten in samples from them. I've selected an amazing narrator to narrate the Shepherd Security series and to do all the male voices. And I'm in the process of selecting a female narrator that her lines will get dropped in, and I will have all of the female parts read by her in different voices for the characters. It's called duet style of narration, and it is more expensive than just one person narrating the entire book because there's a lot more work on the back end to drop in those female lines. But given the number of characters I have, and given the fact that in my head they all have very distinct voices, I wanted to bring that to life just the way that I imagined it. So I have already made an offer to the male narrator and he has accepted it. I will be making a offer to the female narrator by the end of March, and I will secure one, and then we'll begin production. I is my goal to have books 1 through 4 in the Shepherd Security series all turned into audiobooks. And then I will pause and I'll take a look at the revenues versus what it costs to make them and determine if the remainder of the series will have audiobooks made for them. I have gotten the male narrator to sign on for the entire 4 book beginning series, so all of Alpha Team's stories, and the same will hold true for the female narrator. So I really hope that you will help me promote this series to your friends who only listen to audiobooks. I know there's a lot of people out there that only listen to the audiobooks, and I do hope that some of you may also be interested in listening to the Shepherd Security series on audiobook. I'm really excited about it. I have also made an offer to and retained a very talented female narrator to narrate that first year. That will be one of my first books that I make that has an audiobook to go along with it almost immediately after I have published it. As you can imagine, this is all very exciting for me. But unfortunately, it has also taken a little bit of time away from my writing. So that first year is just a tiny bit delayed because it has been a lot of effort to go through and screen all the different voices for narrators and then request their demos, get in their narration auditions, go through them, have conversations with them, and select one to narrate the stories. But I do have to tell you, it is the coolest thing in the world for me to have a professional narrator read one of my books, even in the short amount of it that I've gotten in for the demo. It's just been the coolest thing to hear. So I thank you for coming along with me on this journey, and I'm really excited for it. Hopefully, within a few months, we'll have a few books out there in audiobook form. As far as that first year, as I just said, it is delayed a little bit. I'm now predicting that I'll have it out at the end of April. And then the audiobook should be out by the end of May, 1st of June at the latest. We're already working on that. So that's just a slight delay. But the update that I also wanted to give you on that first year was in the last video, I told you about the 4 main characters: Elise, her oldest daughter Claire, her son Cade, and then her youngest daughter Kelsey. This update that I'm going to give you is actually just a little bit more into the characters to give you more of an introduction. So Elise is 51 years old, and she has spent the majority of her marriage alone as her husband traveled like all the time. And she also runs a dog rescue. The animal rescue that I am familiar with is by the name of Animal House Rescue. It's in Huntley, Illinois. And that's where I adopted my beautiful baby Sydney from. I contacted the owner and she was kind enough to say yes, I could use the name Animal House Rescue in this book to be the name of the rescue that Elise runs. So it is in there. This is kind of a public service message on behalf of the rescue to kindly consider going to rescues and shelters to get your next dog rather than the pet store. There are a lot of great dogs out there that are looking for homes. Every single one of our dogs, except for one, has been from a rescue. Our very first one, she was just the cutest little Westie, little West Highland White Terrier, and we did get her from a pet store. But after that, every animal that followed into my house came from a shelter. So I am quite the advocate for getting your animal at a shelter, unless you're looking for a purebred that you're going to show or what have you. Our baby Sydney, we brought him home at 8 months old. When we went to the shelter, we had just lost Mocha, who I've talked about before, was a German Shepherd mix, and he was the inspiration for the Shepherd Security Series name. I wanted an old dog that just wanted to lay on my couch. My husband didn't want a dog that we were going to lose anytime soon, and he begged me to not get an old one. He said, please, around a year old, if you don't want to do the puppy thing again, let's get about a 1 year old. Well, we went, we walked Sydney, we met Sydney. He was amazing. He was just so good on a leash, and just so friendly and just such a good boy. So we did bring him home, but he is an Australian Shepherd Yellow Lab mix, and I do think there's some pit bull in him just by the look on his face. But he turned out to be quite a high energy dog, a lot more than I was really up for. So Sydney went to obedience classes and became a much better boy. But because of his energy, we still do send him to doggy daycare. Yes, I send my dog to doggy daycare to play, and it's wonderful. He comes home exhausted, and then he sleeps for hours. The second day, he's still in a coma. So Sydney normally goes 2 to 3 days a week, and it's just been wonderful for me to be able to get my work done. Otherwise, he's jumping on me, and he's just wanting attention. He's wanting to play. So it's just been a wonderful thing to be able to have the doggy daycare to send him to. A lot of people would go, oh, that's kind of crazy. And honestly, I would have thought that before too. But when you have a super high energy dog and you don't have the time to play with them, it works. So, anyways, that was just my little update on Elise, that she does run an animal shelter. And a thank you to Leslie from Animal House Shelter in Huntley, Illinois, for allowing me to use your name. I will place links to Animal House Shelter's website in the description of this video. Please go take a look at them. Take a look at all of the wonderful services that they do. They are a no-kill shelter, taking in dogs and cats from high-kill facilities. The last character that I will give an update for, to give more information as far as an introduction to the character, is going to be Claire. So Claire is the oldest daughter in the family. She's 32 years old. She worked with her father, followed in his footsteps as far as her career, and was the closest to her father than her brother or her sister. Well, Claire is married and she has two very young children, and her career has been very important to her. Her father's death is really going to shake things up for her, more so than I think her two siblings. And I had given the beginning of this story to my daughter to read, and she came back and she asked me if she was Claire. Well, the only similarity between my daughter and Claire is the two younger children. She thought there was more similarities. And I guess it's kind of funny because I maybe unconsciously did put some of her traits into Claire, but I certainly exaggerated them. My daughter is an amazing young woman who I'm very proud of. Kelsey, the youngest daughter, her amazing traits are definitely some of my daughter's best traits. But my daughter asking if I wrote Claire after her, if she was Claire, it made me really think about how we do tend to identify with certain characters when we're reading a book or watching a movie. And I definitely can see a lot of career-driven young women identifying with Claire. She is a powerhouse. There are a lot of great traits about her. So I really hope that you will read this book or listen to the audiobook when it comes out and let me know what you think about Claire. And that is going to wrap up this episode of Behind the Books. I hope you've enjoyed it. Oh, by the way, are you enjoying the free books that get advertised in my newsletter every month? The exchange I'm doing with the other great military romance or action adventure romance authors. So this month, March 25th through April 1st, I believe it is, We are doing Nicole Blanchard and her book Anchor. Did you see that in the newsletter? Have you claimed that? I certainly hope that you are enjoying these free books and the chance to meet new authors and read some books for free. If you're seeing this outside of that date and you have not claimed it, go take a look at it on Amazon, as I do believe it is a book you can read for free if you have Kindle Unlimited. And on my website, I do have a link where you can go and get Kindle Unlimited for free for a month if you've never used it before or tried it before. I'll have information in the description of this video for both of those, for her book and for my website, just so you can go check it out. So while we're here, please, if you enjoyed this video and you like seeing them, please hit the like button, leave me any comments, and then also subscribe to this so that you'll be notified when new videos come out. I am trying to grow the Sisters Romance channel, and I want to use it for these kind of things and maybe a couple of other things as well. So thank you again for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a really great rest of your day.